fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The night the sky cracked open, the world tilted on its axis. Iren, a blacksmith's son with calloused hands and a restless heart, stood at the edge of the village, watching indigo heavens bleed violet as shards of starfire rained down like molten glass. The first fragment struck the old oak by the well, shattering the night with a sound that reverberated through my ribs like a war drum. A low hum rose from the fissure, a deep vibration that pressed against my teeth, making them ache. The air grew thick with the scent of burnt amber and wet stone, a perfume that tightened my throat and set my pulse racing. My breath came out in short, ragged bursts, each exhale fogging the night like a ghostly veil. From the shadows stepped Kael, his dark cloak billowing like a storm cloud caught in a sudden gust. He moved with a grace that seemed to defy the tremors of the earth, his boots barely whispering on the cracked cobblestones. His eyes, usually a muted gray, now glowed with a feral light, a hue that reminded me of the embered coals in my father's forge. He was the Void Walker, the man the elders whispered about in fear and reverence, the one who walked between worlds as if they were rooms in a house. He stopped a breath away from me, and his hand brushed my cheek. The heat of his touch ignited a fire that had nothing to do with the void's chill. It was a fire that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside me, a spark that had been waiting for a match. "You shouldn't be here," he growled, his voice low enough to rattle the very stones beneath our feet. I swallowed, feeling the weight of my satchel tug at my shoulder, the leather strap rough against my skin. "I could say the same," I replied, my voice hoarse. "The sky's falling, and you stand there like a statue." Kael's lips curled into a half-smile, the corners of his mouth catching the faint light of the falling stars. He lifted his thumb and traced the line of my jaw, the pressure deliberate, sending a current of heat through my veins. My skin prickled, a mixture of fear and something else, an ache I hadn't allowed myself to name. "The void feeds on terror," he whispered, his breath hot against my ear, "but it also craves desire." A shard of starfire cracked the ground between us, sending a spray of molten rock that hissed as it met the cold night air. The world seemed to hold its breath. I could feel the tremor of the earth beneath my boots, the way the heat from Kael's hand seeped into my palm, the way his eyes searched mine for something I couldn't yet understand. I stepped closer, the distance between us shrinking to a breath. "What do you want, Kael?" I asked, my voice barely more than a rasp. He tilted his head, the darkness in his gaze deepening. "I want you to feel what it is to be truly alive," he said, his thumb now pressing harder against my jaw, the pressure a promise and a threat, to let the void's hunger become our own fire. The ground shuddered again, a fissure opening at our feet, swallowing the dust and stone. The abyss yawned, a black mouth that seemed to pulse with a heartbeat of its own. Kael's grip tightened, his fingers digging into the flesh of my wrist, the pain sharp, the sensation intoxicating. "Surrender to him or to me," he snarled, his voice a low growl that vibrated through my bones. The void's pulse throbbed louder, a hungry rhythm that matched the frantic beat of my heart. I closed my eyes, feeling the heat of his hand, the heat of the molten sky, the heat of a longing that had been smoldering beneath my skin for years. When I opened them, Kael's gaze was fixed on mine, fierce and unyielding. "Then show me," I whispered, the words tasting like ash and promise. He smiled, a flash of feral light in his eyes, and pulled me toward the crack. The abyss beckoned, darkness swirling like ink, but his hand was a steady anchor. As we fell together, the world around us shattered, and the only thing that mattered was the fire we carried between us, an inferno of fear, desire, and a promise that the void could never extinguish. When the darkness finally closed, I felt Kael's lips brush my ear, his breath hot, his voice a low murmur. "Welcome to the edge, Iren. Let us burn together." And in that moment, the void was no longer a threat. It became the crucible of our shared destiny.